I was restocking shelves when a customer grabbed my shoulder and screamed she was going to get me fired. Her face was already blood red and her eyes looked absolutely unhinged. I stepped back and pointed to the badge pinned to my vest that read, "I'm deaf. Please tap my shoulder for assistance." I'd been working at this store for 2 years and the badge had always solved problems before, but she stared right at it and somehow got even more pissed off. I read her lips. "Oh, I see exactly what game you're playing," she said. I tried to sign that I could help her now and pointed at the stuff in her hands, but she just rolled her eyes like I was proving her point. She laughed and said something I couldn't fully catch, but I definitely saw the word pathetic in there. I grabbed my cart and started to move to the next aisle because I genuinely thought she was done with me. I was so wrong. I was in the next aisle putting coffee makers on the shelf when I felt something hit my back. I turned around and she was standing there with her arms crossed, looking satisfied with herself. A bag of marshmallows was on the floor behind me. She'd thrown it at me. I stared at her in disbelief and she just raised her eyebrows like, "What are you going to do about it?" I turned back to my work and then felt something else hit me. Then another thing. I spun around and she was literally grabbing items off the shelf behind her and chucking them in my direction while filming me on her phone with her other hand. A box of tea bags hit my shoulder. Other customers were stopping to stare, and this one older guy looked worried enough that he walked up to her and said something. She whipped around on him and I saw her say, "Mind your own business," before turning back to me. She got right up in my face and started snapping her fingers next to my ear. When I didn't react, she looked even more convinced of whatever theory she'd built in her head. She moved behind me and I felt her clap her hands together loudly, so I turned to face her again and signed that I was happy to help if she told me what she needed. She just moved closer and started mouthing words super dramatically like I was stupid. Another customer tapped my shoulder, pointed toward the front desk, and mouthed, "Get your manager," so I started heading that way with my cart. This woman followed me like she was on a mission and actually grabbed another customer by the arm and said something while pointing at me. The customer looked horrified and pulled away from her. By the time I got to customer service, she'd attracted so much attention that my manager was already running over. She immediately started going off on him and pointing at me over and over. She actually shoved her phone in his face to show him the video. My manager held his hands up and I watched him sign and say at the same time, "She's deaf." The woman's jaw dropped like she couldn't believe he just signed. "Are you serious right now?" she said. "This employee has been ignoring me for 10 minutes and now you're all in on this together?" My manager's face stayed completely neutral and he signed while speaking. "She's actually deaf. Her badge explains how to get her attention." The woman said, "She is not deaf. She's a faker. I want her fired." My manager shook his head and signed, "I'm going to need you to leave the store." She crossed her arms and planted her feet. "I'm not going anywhere until you fire her." I saw her look right at me when I was talking. My manager sighed and said, "You're causing a disturbance. Please leave." The woman stepped even closer to him and said, "You won't kick me out." My manager looked her dead in the eyes and said, "I'm doing it right now. Leave." She let out a laugh and said, "You don't mean that. I'm your wife." My manager's face went completely stone cold and he said, "I don't care. You need to leave my store right now." Everyone in that crowd just froze. The woman's face went from smug to absolutely panicked in about 2 seconds. She clearly thought being his wife meant he'd take her side, but instead he looked at her like she was a stranger. She tried to grab his arm and said something, but he stepped back and pulled out his radio. He said, "Security to customer service, please," without breaking eye contact with her. The security guard showed up within like 30 seconds, and the woman immediately pointed her phone at him. She was clearly losing it because her hands were shaking, and she kept looking between my manager and the guard like she couldn't believe this was happening. The guard said something and gestured to the door, but she just started recording him and screaming about her rights. She actually said, "This is assault. You're all assaulting me right now." My manager pulled out his phone and said, "I'm calling the police," and started dialing right in front of her. The woman looked around at the crowd that had formed, and I saw her soul leave her body. The security guard stepped forward and she finally started backing toward the exit, but she tried to keep her chin up like she was making some kind of dignified retreat. She got escorted all the way outside, and through the windows, I watched her trip over the curb in the parking lot and nearly eat pavement before speed walking to her car.